All right, gunfighters, let's get ready for another episode of Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about gunfighting the right way with Judeo Christian values and real world first hand experience. Today, we're going to be talking about holsters and different methods of carry. While you're listening, don't forget to reach down, scroll down, hit some stars, leave a review of the podcast. Like, subscribe, and check out goodshepherdtraining.com while you're listening if you want more. I'm going to plug in the bio. If you've heard it before or want to skip it, you can skip around 3 minutes and 45 seconds from where it starts. And I should mention that today's episode is a Patreon request from one of the patrons. Again, if you want to be a patron, goodshepherdtraining.com. But he messaged me this morning. We have a private group chat for the patrons on Facebook Messenger where we not just me telling them, like we help each other. If you want to be a part of that, again, goodshepherdtraining.com. And a shout out to Pat for the episode idea. You ask and you shall receive, as the Bible says.
First and foremost, I am a servant of God, preacher, a fisher of men. God is number one in my life, and everything that I do in this podcast is no different, and I don't apologize for that. A little bit about me in the background. I grew up, I guess what you would consider a heathen. Didn't grow up a Christian, but I grew up in the southeastern United States, what most would consider very poor. Hunting and fishing and shooting. Joined the Marine Corps at 17, did a couple of combat tours in Iraq. After my combat tours in Iraq, I was an urban warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps under Mojave Viper. I also served in law enforcement for several years in LAPD. I worked patrol assignments and more specialized assignments, where by God's grace, He got me through some nasty places in this world of war zones and some of the nastiest streets in the country. Not because I am better, because God chose to have mercy on me and had a purpose for me, and I'm thankful for that. After my time in law enforcement, I was a private contractor for federal government, for a three-letter government agency I won't specify, doing private contracting work. I'm very much involved in guns and gunfighting. I also served in the U.S. Army, both full-time and part-time National Guard. I should say my primary MOS is in both branches of the military or infantry, as of one sort or another. Specialized infantry in the Marine Corps and an MOS that no longer exists. I started competition shooting even before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I won my first gold medal even before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I've been blessed by God with the talents He's given me to win more shooting competitions than I can remember. I've won most of my competitions in rifle and pistol, but I've also competed in archery and shotgun and even muzzleloader, knife throwing, hatchet throwing. I've competed in all that. I've also been a professional big game hunter and guide. Like I said, I grew up hunting and fishing and shooting. I've done it to put meat on the table because I like to put food on the table with the talents God's given me. I don't apologize for that. I've done it as a professional hunter and guide. I've slain all manner of beast and guided for all manner of beast. Bear and wolf and elk and deer, mule deer, whitetail deer. I've slain ram and fallow deer and countless animals. And I don't apologize for that either. FBI certified, firearms instructor, NRA, and a bunch of other three-letter government agency certifications. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. Psalm 144. I've been blessed to be the commander of a tactical team, an SRT, special response team, in a large metropolitan area, where our primary job was to stop active shooters. But again, first and foremost, I'm a servant of God, called by God to share the good news, preacher, a fisher of men. With that, we will roll into the day's topic.
All right, men, with that, let's get into today's episode of Gunfighter Life. Let's talk about holsters. Now, I'm going to recommend that if you are new to drawing a firearm, a handgun, you know, that you start here. This is the best place. This is where I more than 90% of the time carry a gun. It's where most professionals carry a gun. I said most, not all. There are other exceptions, which we'll get to. But that is strong side, and I know there's this big thing in the tats community. It's not strong side and weak side. It's whatever, whatever. I'm going to call it strong side and weak side. Whatever your dominant hand is, your dominant side, your strong side, on your belt line, on your hip. That is the best place to carry in almost all situations. It is the fastest, it's the most consistent. It's generally where your hands normally are, somewhere around that position when you're walking, when you're running, when you are just standing around. Most of the time, your hands are somewhere near your belt line. It's a natural resting place for your hands. You see this. This is where a lot of competition shooters, pretty much all competition shooters actually, now that I think about it, this is where they run their gun from. Strong side belt. Why? Because it's fastest. And I have never been in a slow gunfight. If you look at most, you know, of the big prestigious firearms training schools, which I don't know if I mentioned in the bio, but I am a certified professional firearms instructor for one of the largest firearms training schools in the country, by that measure, probably the world, and most others as well. The big ones, the professional ones, mandate, strong side or dominant side belt carry, and that's for good reason. It's fast, it's consistent, it's where your hands naturally are most of the time. It's generally safe. The muzzle is not generally pointed anywhere life threatening. There are good ways to retain that pistol should somebody else try and grab it. So I would say the advantages of this position far outweigh the disadvantages for most people most of the time. So if you're looking at getting started in a concealed carry, if you're looking at the best place to carry strong side. Carry strong side, dominant side on your belt somewhere. Now the next things we're going to get into is position. I would say start with it right at your 3 o'clock. If you picture like the very front where the zipper of your trousers are, that would be your 12 o'clock, your high noon. And then going around directly to the side would be 3 o'clock. Now you can vary a little bit. If I'm going ultra concealed and I'm carrying a subcompact gun, I will generally push it back a little bit just because of my body shape. And if I'm just wearing a t-shirt, I can conceal a compact size gun just for my body shape. I have much bigger, by God's grace, much bigger shoulders and everything than a waist. And my shirt just naturally hangs down and I can hide a gun back there pretty easy. Giving up a little bit of speed from the 3 o'clock, but I'm not giving up a lot. And it's still, my draw is pretty much the same. There's a little variation in the very first grasping of the gun, but most of it, the consistency is there. Now, you can run it all the way to the small of the back. You give up a little bit more speed. If you're pretty flexible, you don't give up a lot of speed. And if you're wearing like a button-up shirt that you don't button up, you can conceal quite a large handgun, most people, in the small of their back. The downsides to this is that it kind of sucks if you're sitting a lot. So probably not if you're a truck driver or somebody that is in a car a lot. Small of the back's probably not great. But if you're not that, if you're walking around a lot, small, and you're concealing a big gun, small of the back can be quite nice to conceal a big gun. And you can move around to the front. This is what's been coined in recent years appendix carry. Now, I'm not a fan of appendix carry. And I know a lot of you will disagree with me, and that's fine. You don't have to agree with everything that I say. Again, I come at this from real world firsthand experience. One of those experiences being seeing firsthand what can happen if that gun goes off in an appendix carry position and one's femoral artery gets sliced. Whether that's because the holster gets jammed up and actually hits the trigger of the firearm, or a shirt or something else gets shoved in there and that gun goes off reholstering. I don't like it for that reason. I generally also don't like it for me because of my body shape. Again, very easy for me to conceal a gun towards the back of my hip. It's very hard for me to conceal any gun of any size in the front. But if you like appendix carry, I'm not telling you it's wrong. I'm just telling you I don't like it. It is actually very fast. It can be a very fast position, especially from concealment to draw from. So that's kind of still your strong side belt carry. All of those are kind of in that same general area. I said I carry dominant side belt like more than 90% of the time. If I'm not doing that, my next place that I will generally carry is pocket. And it's giving up some speed. It's giving up quite a bit of speed, which is why I do it, far less than 10% of the time. But it lets me carry a gun when I otherwise wouldn't be able to. When I'm in a pair of cut-off cargo pants, shorts, a pair of my old uniform pants that are cut off, or a pair of shorts when it's super hot out, or when I'm working out or something like that. I'm going to the beach, going swimming, whatever the case may be. Lets me carry a gun when I normally wouldn't be able to carry and conceal a gun. I will normally pocket carry a Glock 26, which yes, can be done, and I've done it for years and years. Glock 26, or my general go-to when I'm carrying something small, is my Smith & Wesson J-frame 360 PD, which is a 357 Magnum. It weighs like 11 ounces and some change. It's super light. It's super powerful. Not a lot of fun to shoot, but I would say that it's very effective. And I'll generally carry that in one pocket and hopefully a speed strip in the other pocket for a reload if I need it. But pocket carry. And you're still, once you get your hand on the gun, the draw stroke is pretty much the same as it is any other time. It's pretty much the same as it is, strong side belt carry, because it's in the same position. You just have to get your hand in your pocket. And a little pro tip is, if you think you're going to be in a shady situation, you can generally have your hand on that gun, on the grip, especially on like a J-frame revolver. You can have a full firing grip in your pocket and never show anybody that you have a gun if you think something's about to go down, if you have the time. Now, you may not, but if you do, you're in a convenience store, 7-Eleven, what we generally refer to in LAPD as a stop and rob, and some people walk in and you're like, I don't know about this. You can have your hand on that gun and nobody knows you have your hand on a gun. And if you've done quite a bit of shooting and competition and tactical classes, getting your grip right on the draw is one of the hardest things. But you can do that without having to do it under time stress and get a full firing grip. And then if your hand's already on there in a proper grip, then pocket draw is pretty quick. That's my next go-to for carry and pockets. I would never ever recommend, which is one of the things that sparked this episode, thanks Pat, I would never recommend that you carry a gun anywhere out of a holster. Ever. Period. End of story. You can get such light, nice, handy holsters. There is no reason to not have your gun in a holster, especially in a pocket. Weird things happen, especially with your modern striker fired pistols that don't have a safety or whatever. I would never ever carry those like that. And going back to appendix, I don't think you need a manual like thumb style safety on a modern handgun. I really don't. But if you're going to appendix carry, I would really advocate a model that has that. Even if you only use it to reholster, again, I've seen the damage that can do. Even if you're going to reholster, engage the safety, and then as soon as it's safely in the holster, take the safety off. But again, going back to pocket carry or any kind of carry, you need a holster. Obviously, if you're strong side belt carrying, you're going to have a holster. If you're appendix carrying, don't do the gangster carry where you just tuck it into your waistband. That is a horrible, horrible idea for so many reasons. Not the least of which is if you have to run or it just falls out. But carry your gun in a holster however you carry it, wherever you carry it. But pocket carry is my next go-to for the reasons that I stated. You do give up some speed, I'm going to be honest. But it lets me carry a gun when I normally wouldn't be able to conceal a gun. Like if I'm in a tank top and a pair of shorts, pretty hard to conceal a fighting size handgun any other way, for me at least. The next thing we're going to talk about is ankle carry. Now, ankle carry is kind of a old school thing. I actually did it when I was LAPD. I had an ankle holster. I still have the ankle holster, and I would carry obviously my duty gun, which was a Glock 22 40 cal. At least when I started, and I didn't know any better, and everybody said you had to have a 40. It was the best ballistically, which I don't think is true. But anyway, I digress. I carried my Glock 22 on my Sam Brown, my duty belt, and then I carried my Smith & Wesson J-frame on an ankle holster on my non-strong side, on my weak side ankle. And you know what? That works. I did that for a while. I eventually just went to carrying the J-frame in my weak side pocket. Just in case I was laying on my duty gun and I couldn't get to it, the other side would be free. And that's how I carried it, in a pocket holster in my non-dominant pocket. But when I ankle carried, there are some advantages, and the advantages are if you're seated in a car. And which cops are a lot. Let's face it. I mean, cops spend a lot of time on their butt in a car, especially working patrol assignments. Again, I work patrol assignments and more specialized assignments. But on a patrol assignment, you spend a lot of time on your butt sitting in a car, whether that's, going from call to call, or after you've arrested somebody, taking them to jail, which in LAPD traffic can take several hours. Whatever the case is, you spend a lot of time in your car seated. And seated in a car, it actually might be faster to draw from an ankle than it is to draw from your duty holster, because it's just right there. You don't have to wiggle out of the way. You don't have to worry about your seatbelt getting caught, for a lot of reasons. So a lot of people say ankle carry is always stupid. I would say ankle carry is not my primary, but it may work for you. If you are a truck driver, for instance, ankle carry is a good option because you're mostly seated. You're mostly in your car. If somebody comes up to the side of your car, they might see you grab a gun on your dominant side, especially if you're right-handed. They might see you reach over and grab a gun, and you might not want them to see that. But if they come up to the side of your car and you can reach over to your weak side ankle, they may not even see that. And you could even bring your ankle up and grab your gun and have it sitting right there and have your hand on it, and they would never know. And again, if you can get that good firing grip before it turns into a gunfight, that gives you quite a bit of speed and advantage because you have the proper grip. So ankle carry, I would say, has advantages if you're seated a lot. Ankle carry sucks if you're running, which I learned as a cop, which is why I switched to pocket, because I was a cop that ran. Foot pursuits are a thing. But that's your advantages, disadvantages, ankle carry. If you get an ankle carry gun, I would say make sure you have a retention strap on that. That way, if it does fly off, which happens, you don't just have the gun skidding across the ground, across the pavement, which happens. You actually will have your whole holster usually come off, and at least it's in a holster when it flies off. But ankle carry, the retention, like thumb brake strap on the top, I really like that. Again, if you're seated in a car for long periods of time. Or I guess seated for, maybe you're going to a movie or something and you're walking basically from the front of the movie theater to sit down and you're going home. Maybe that would be a good option for that because you're seated most of the time. There are other specialized carry which generally applies to, like I didn't mention in the bio, but my primary MOS in both branches of the U.S. Marine Corps and the U.S. Army was infantry, but I also served in 1st Cavalry, which is tanks. And, tankers a lot of times will carry a pistol on their chest, which makes sense for a tanker because you're in a freaking tank. And things have gone horribly, horribly wrong if your tank is out of commission and your machine guns are out of commission and you're fighting with a pistol. By the time it takes you to get out of the tank, you probably already have the handgun in your hand. So quick draw is probably not a general concern for tankers. In fact, the Army Qual, at least last time I shot it, I don't believe even requires you to draw from a holster. But you do see that, and you do see that for police officers sometimes. Like they'll carry a little small. I remember when the Smith & Wesson bodyguards were a brand new thing, and they were so small and handy, a lot of cops would wear them in their cummerbund of their bulletproof vest or wear them like strapped onto their body armor because they were so thin. You could actually do that. It was kind of revolutionary at the time. And you may still see some cops do that. Other place some cops will carry, you'll see them carry multiple handcuff containers, and some guns are small enough to actually fit in the backup handcuff case. Have one with handcuffs, maybe 2 sets of handcuffs in one pouch, like a double. Then they'll have another one with a handgun in it, just in case. So there are other specialty things, but the next big one I'm going to talk about is off-body carry. I am not a big fan of off-body carry if it's your concealed carry gun. Your concealed carry gun, I believe, should be on you, period. Pretty much all the time. I guess off-body carry is better than nothing, but you really have to be concerned about somebody that's unauthorized or something dangerous happening, having access to your gun. If it's on you, that's pretty hard. I mean, somebody can, fight you and take your handgun. They're not just going to happen upon your handgun, which may happen if it's off-body. Again, I've told you, well, you might not, because I shouldn't assume that everybody that listens to this listens to the Alpha Male podcast. Alpha Male podcast is a whole other podcast we do that encompasses more than just guns. Being a good, God-fearing, strong, dominant man. And we just covered the baby bug out bag. And in my baby bug out bag, I carry a full-size fighting handgun. I also generally every day conceal carry a full-size fighting handgun. But if you don't and you carry a smaller gun, maybe off-body in your car, in your vehicle bag or whatever, that's where you have your full-size fighting handgun and your long gun. Off-body carry, good for that. But I think you should have a gun on you if you're a man and you consider yourself an alpha male and a protector and part of the well-regulated militia. Period. But off-body carry is good for some other stuff. Now let's talk a little bit about women. Women have different things going on than men do. Men and women are different. There, I said it. You can turn the freaking podcast off if you want and call it hate speech and go to another thing, but I don't care. It's true. Men and women are different. Men and women are supposed to be different. We were designed different. In the image of God, He created them. Male and female, He created them. We are different, and that's beautiful, and that's great, and we are both valuable and important in different ways. We are different. Women wear different clothing. Women generally wear different pants. A lot of women wear stretchy pants, which I generally don't like. I'm married. I love my wife. I don't want to see other women walking around with skin-tight pants all the time. I don't like it. But most women do, especially nowadays. What do they call it? Athleisure, my wife says they call it. You're probably not concealed carrying normal and those kind of normal pants, but they do make pants like that if you just have to wear those kind of pants, ladies. They do make pants like that with pockets sewn in or like in the waistband. A lot of those are like high-waisted. They do make compartments in those to put a gun into. They also do make what's called a sticky holster that will generally go in between that if it's a tight garment and your body if you're not wearing a belt. I can't speak to that. I've never used them. A man shall not put on a woman's garment per the Bible. Oh, sorry, no T&E there, ladies. But do you know that's a thing? It's been a thing for a while, so it probably works. Now, another real common one for ladies is purse carry. Now, I don't know if you would consider this. I guess you would consider it off-body, but it's a little different if you always have the purse in your hands. And in women, you could probably get away with this, in this guise, in a clutch or a purse carrying a much larger handgun than a lot of men can carry. You could carry a full-size, judging by some women's purses, you could carry an FN 45 tactical with a suppressor on it if you wanted to in your purse. And as long as you have dominion and control over that purse, I would not consider it unsafe. The second you put it down, I would consider it unsafe, especially if there's kids around. Be fruitful and multiply. I'm all about kids. I'm all about little kids. I love kids. My favorite things to teach is kids classes and kids firearm safety classes and just kids shooting classes. I love that. Love kids. But if you're going to carry, in my opinion, a gun in your purse, that purse needs to be in your hand, in your control, under your arm, or whatever, where a kid can't grab it. Don't ever put that purse down around kids. If you don't have any kids, you're not in that point in your life, you're not ever around kids, and it goes from, wherever you are in your car, whatever, that's a different story. But really think about that. And really think about the responsibility. If you go to the bathroom, that purse needs to go with you. Don't just leave it in your cubicle or wherever situation you're in. That's, it's a great thing here in America to be able to be armed all the time, but it does come with responsibility. It's a real weighty decision you have to make, and it shouldn't be taken lightly. I guess real quick we'll get into holster materials. The big two, I guess that's not true, but two of the biggest ones are Kydex, and that's my number one recommendation, a good Kydex holster. And Kydex is kind of a brand name, kind of like Jello. Everybody knows it, even if it's gelatin and not made by the Jello company. You know, Kydex is just pretty much a brand name for fancy plastic that molds under heat. But a good hard plastic, hard whatever composite holster that retains the gun. I'm talking probably mostly to concealed carriers. If it's concealed carry, just a single retention, like friction retention, meaning if you fall over something that's going to fly out of the holster. So a single retention, just meaning that there's some kind of tension on the holster, so you have just to grab it and pull it out. But a passive retention would be fine. When I wrote the policy for the SRT team, the special response team to stop active shooters, we open carried. We carried on war belts. And I mandated that we have at least a double retention, meaning that passive we talked about, and then an active, meaning a thumb brake, a trigger finger retention, a rock and lock, something where somebody couldn't just grab your gun and pull it out of the holster. Because we were in a big metropolitan area, we did very large venues with thousands of people. Sometimes you'd be wading through crowds of people. You don't want somebody to just be able to reach down and grab your gun. You want some kind of retention. And I would, if you're a professional listening to this or you open carry, which I'm not a big fan of unless you're hiking or something, just from a tactical perspective, I don't want somebody to know that I have a gun until it's time to use that gun. Unless, again, I'm a professional and my show of force as somebody with a handgun may deter something like a riot or something like that, or an active shooter scenario. But if you are going to open carry, I would advocate getting a retention holster, meaning there's something you have to defeat to get that gun out of the holster. Lots of cops are shot with their own gun. It's just, I'm not aware of any law enforcement organization that allows their police officers, at least in regular uniform duty, to carry without a retention holster. So if you're going to open carry, I suggest you use a retention holster as well. And that generally denotes Kydex. There are some locking, leather holsters, but Kydex is kind of the standard, like I was talking about for a strong side belt. That's my number one recommendation, Kydex. And again, any kind of hard plastic that's made for that specific model of gun, I would say start there. The next one's going to be leather. Now, leather is classic. It's classy. It's nice. You can get it with a thumb brake, which actually, you'd think I was old saying this, but when I was LAPD, we had just leather thumb brake holsters still. And they worked, and they were fast, and they were good. Nothing wrong with a good leather holster. Caveat, as long as it's made for that specific gun. Not if the holster says like any large frame gun, like that's probably not a good holster. I won't drop names here because I haven't tried their product enough to know, but pretty big holster manufacturer reached out to me and they said, let us send you a holster. And I said no, because you shall not take a bribe, for a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and twists the words of the righteous. And so I said no, and I paid money for it. I paid what it cost. It was a very nice looking leather holster, and it didn't fit, and it was crap, and I threw it in the trash, even though I paid good money for it. It's supposed to fit, several different models, but it was like a high-end brand, and I was like, okay, I've never tried this brand. They're reaching out to me. I will pay my money for this and give it a shot. And I threw it in the garbage, literally. Get one made for that gun if it's leather. Get one made for that. If it's a 1911, get one for, whatever your full-size 5-inch 1911. If it's a Glock 19, get a good leather holster from Bianchi or whomever for a Glock 19. And if it says anything like universal holster, that your red flag should go up there, in my opinion. Again, this is my opinion from my training and experience. Well, those are your big two. You also get like your cloth holsters, and most of those are going to be your universal holsters. I would consider those good for not carry. I would consider like your cheaper, ballistic nylon or whatever they are, polyester holsters. I would consider those like a soft gun case that could maybe be used as a holster, but probably shouldn't be. The one exception to that would be the military M12, the Bianchi M12, or I think it's the UM84 also, that designation. But that's a friggin' fantastic holster. But that's, you're talking a $70, $80 holster. That's kind of different than what I normally think of when I think of like a soft ballistic nylon holster for $9.99 or whatever. Consider that like a soft gun case, like if I was going to have it in a bag or a backup gun that I would throw in a bag to give to somebody else just in case. That's what I see that for, but I would not want that for my everyday carry holster at all. I would not want to run that in any kind of tactical class or competition shooting or anything like that. And there are some kind of in-betweens, like the pocket holsters that are really good. I will name names on this one, like the DeSantis pocket holsters are pretty awesome. I've heard good things about the sticky holsters, though I've never used them. Some of those are really cheap and flimsy and wear out quite easily. The Bianchis I've used for years and years, and I've never had one wear out. I don't know how to describe them. They're kind of like a thin tire rubber wrapped around a piece of cloth. They're pretty robust. I'm sure there's other brands that make those. Oh, and I guess we should talk about, sorry for the out of order, guys, but I'm getting ready for work. I got up super early this morning, so I'm not going to like erase and edit this. I'm just going to talk. The drop holster, the drop leg holster. You see it, it's on all the tactical videos. It was probably on the movie SWAT. I don't know. I saw that movie once a long, long time ago. No desire to see it again. It's the most tactical way to carry your gun in a drop holster. I had a drop holster in Iraq that I got from my deployments to Iraq. Back in the early aughts, that was a tactical way to carry. Got to realize why we carried like that. And the reason we carried like that is because if you were issued that old Marine Corps body armor, or even back old enough to have the old big flak jackets, those things are giant. And for most people, you really can't carry on your belt because the body armor hangs down over it. So you couldn't do strong side hip carry effectively. So you dropped it down a little bit to get off of your body armor. I would not recommend that for anybody unless you still have to wear that kind of body armor. The body armor today is much sleeker and slimmer and makes it very easy to carry. And even way back then, I seem to remember carrying my backup gun, my handgun, more on my actual body armor itself on the chest than I ever did in the drop holster. Not to say I never did it, but anyway, it's kind of why the drop leg holster was a thing. If that doesn't apply to you, I would not recommend it. And that leads us to talking about, like I said, when we were tankers, we a lot of times were issued that was a way to carry, was on the chest, like in a shoulder holster. You see it in Die Hard, it looks super cool. You see a lot of detectives do it. You really have to practice a totally different draw with that than pretty much any other way. You really have to train if you're going to do it. You really have to get that non-dominant arm up out of the way, or you're muzzling yourself when you draw. Also, a lot of ranges won't let you practice it because you start out with the gun pointed behind you, and generally that's not a safe direction. So if it's in the holster, I would consider it safe. But a lot of ranges, as soon as you grab it out of the holster, it is not safe. And for that period of time, it is pointed behind you, where the range safety officer is, where the onlookers are. So it's generally not allowed in competition that I'm aware of anywhere, at least any of the big USPSA, IDPA. It's generally not allowed on a lot of ranges, which means you're going to have to go somewhere on your own by yourself and practice, which may mean it's hard for you to get good instruction from an outside source. It's not as fast. I'm not going to say you should never do it. Like if you wear a suit and you want to carry a full-size gun, like if you want to be like John McClane and carry a Beretta 92, which is a fantastic pistol, and you want to do it in your Hawaiian shirt, that's probably the only way to do it. Maybe small of the back. But again, that's going to suck if you're sitting down for long periods of time. So I'm not going to say to never do it, but I'm going to say there are a lot of disadvantages to shoulder holsters. I think I have one in a bag somewhere. I don't know that I've ever actually used it other than just to mess around and experiment with it, just to know how to do it and to say that I've done it. But that's not at all one of my go-tos or my secondary or my tertiary or anywhere down on the line. But it is a thing. I'm not saying it's wrong if you do it. I say it's kind of like ankle carry. There are very niche reasons and probably even more niche than the ankle carry. But you're a grown man. As long as you're safe, do what you want. All right, with that, I'm going to wrap up the episode on holsters. Probably more than you wanted to know about holsters. Before we get into the tactical tip, which I know a lot of you look forward to and like, but I'm going to leave you hanging for a minute, and I'm going to say go to goodshepherdtraining.com, check out Patreon. These are free to listen to. They are not free to produce. We have to pay us, we, by we I mean God, myself, is the we, have to pay to have these on a server somewhere so you can have access to them. That costs money. It used to cost a little bit of money. The more popular the show gets, and hopefully the better it gets, the more money that costs. Also having a website. So I'm about to give you the tactical tip. Just keep in mind that if you think the tactical tip is at all worth the fraction of the cost of a box of ammo or any of the other tactical tips or any of the information I gave you is worth as little as $1. A lot of ammo right now, one round costs more than $1. One Fancy City cup of coffee is probably going to cost you several dollars. So keep that in mind and consider going to goodshepherdtraining.com, clicking on the Patreon link. If you would all today go to Amazon for looking at holsters or looking at gun stuff or tactical stuff, and you're about to drop $10, $20 or more, think back to Gunfighter Life and think about going to Patreon and just giving $1, signing up on Patreon for that. I want you to do it to support the podcast because you think it's worth it, but you also get perks. You get insider information. You get, tactical shooting drills, practical shooting drills. You get to see like my trapping kit from when I was a professional trapper. You get to see some cool pictures and stuff like that. And you get to be part of a tribe and a community. We have little group chats. If you want to be a part of that, if you think that's worth $1, again, consider it. Patreon, and you get there at goodshepherdtraining.com. Also, I almost never mention it, but I also have a Good Shepherd Training on Instagram and Facebook. Not really a way to support the podcast, but if you want to check out pictures and stuff, you can go there also. But your main one-stop shop, goodshepherdtraining.com. Which brings us to the tactical tip of the day. I realized it when I was dry firing last night with a Glock 17, and Glocks are what they are. I generally describe them as the Honda Civic of handguns, as I'm playing with this right now. Glock 17, Gen 5. Anyway, this is not about the Glock. This is about I picked it up and remembered a tactical tip that I've been doing for so long I forgot about. But if you're working on your reloads, your super cool tack reloads, or your speed reloads, your emergency reloads, I have a little thing that I say in my head to help with smooth, fast reloads. And that is front sight, and then magwell, and then target, and then front sight. And that denotes what my eyes should be doing. And what your eyes are doing in shooting is very important. Again, you should be, if you're shooting, focusing on front sight, and then when you go to do the mag change, focus on the magwell for a split second, and then find your target again, and then front sight. Front sight, magwell, target, front sight. In line with that tactical tip, something that I like to do is take a bright colored sticker or obnoxiously colored nail polish or paint or whatever, and paint on the inside of the magwell. Generally the side that I look at for most of my reloads. I do practice reloading on my non-dominant side, but most of my reloads are practiced in my go-to firing hand, which for me is my right hand. And on the inside of the magwell on the right side, I put a bright colored sticker or a bright colored paint or something like that, so that when I transition from looking to the front sight to the magwell, my eyes just snap. They're just, they just see it, pop. And that helps me guide that magazine into the magwell. Gives me a visual place to focus. And if my eyes are focused there, it's generally more consistent that I'll get a quick reload. And the faster and better and more you practice, the less time you'll have to spend looking at that. It might just be literally a fraction of a millisecond. Focus on the magwell, shove the magazine in, and go back to the target. If you practice a lot, then you won't even have to look at all. You can do it running with your eyes closed. But it's still not a bad thing to have a brightly colored index point on the inside of your magwell. And that's a tactical tip of the day, which is going to bring us to the tactical verse of the day. One of my all-time favorites, Deuteronomy chapter 20. When you go out to battle against your enemies and see horses and chariots and people more numerous than you, do not be afraid of them, for the Lord your God is with you, who brought you up from the land of Egypt. So it shall be when you are on the verge of battle that the priest shall approach and speak to the people, and he shall say to them, Hear, O Israel, today you are on the verge of battle with your enemies. Do not let your heart faint, do not be afraid, and do not tremble or be terrified because of them. For the Lord your God is he who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies to save you. Don't forget, man, that you are made in the image of God. Exodus 15, the Lord is a man of war. Be strong, stand ready, walk humbly with your God, and have a blessed day.